The shoulders are 1/6 of the way down. Sorry, this is taking forever for me to complete. Now, you might have fallen asleep while reading the first two paragraphs, while I fell asleep watching my first two edits trying to teach you how to complete this easy to follow, step by step, let me hold your hand while you practice book. Figure drawing, for all it's worth, is a goldmine for artists, but let's be real, it's not a one-size-fits-all guide. While Loomis's method is a foundation for achieving hyperrealism and understanding the human form, it might not be the perfect fit for every artist. I mean, by chapter 4, we're supposed to have learned proportions, general framework, relationship of perspective, movement and action, mannequin and simplified form, anatomy, light and shadow, foreshortening, fundamentals of light, and true modeling of form. Now, for those of you who are not terrified of that list, we'll break down some best practices that helped me complete the recommended exercises in this book. And if you don't have this book, don't worry, there's a link to a free copy in the description. But I do recommend supporting your local bookstore. Now, you want to stay tuned to the end of the video to know if this book is the right fit for you. Now, if that sounds good to you, let's get after it. Now, the number one reason why I recommend this book to all artists is because of this segment right here. Andrew Loomis offers a valuable philosophy on how artists can make their art unique and express their core beliefs. Now, you want to take time to really think about what it is that you want to draw and what's familiar to you, and what do you want to express in your artwork. Now, take a moment and think about what you know. In studying this book, we need to practice the number one concept that Loomis emphasizes: observation. As an artist, we need to be observant of everything around us, and in this book, if you're struggling to read it, then you really need to observe the examples. Now, when we begin following the recommended exercises in this book, we want to analyze the examples he provides and draw a few of these grids. Now, we want to just focus on the grids and not so much of his figure, not just yet. So we can draw a couple of these grids out, and then we'll place a simplified stick figure for the time being. Now, these examples are a bit complicated to study from, and here's where you start: your vanishing point. It's right there, and if you want to draw all these together, then I recommend a larger canvas, or you could draw them individually on separate sheets of paper. Now, after we've gone through that and we have all of our grids, we'll study the breakdown and draw in the simplified stick figure. Loomis provides his sketches, but if you're attempting to replicate these, it can be rather exhausting. Now, there's no exact correct stick figure, and it's your preference. If you need a reference to quickly sketch, let's pause this video and draw these examples to see what feels right to you. After we've drawn our grids, let's keep those handy either in a folder or at the beginning of our sketchbook. Now, we're going to get a bit more into perspective and composition, and we'll follow this step-by-step process on page 34. But again, just draw your version of the simplified figure, and then draw this big when you're practicing. This example is really small, and we tend to replicate examples as we see them. I also recommend practicing the grids on the bottom half and trying to use different colors when drawing the grids and figures. You could also draw in different weight and erase some of your grid lines as you draw your figures. Just remember not to erase your work entirely. Here we want to compare and contrast the examples on page 35, and this is where we take notice on what seems out of place and what seems too big or too small. We'll follow these examples again, and using the stick figure that works best for you. We'll identify how the body begins to move, and just like we practice in How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, we'll observe which ligaments to align for placement. Alright, now we'll learn to give our stick figure the skeleton, and here's where lines can get dangerous as Loomis focuses on how bones are curvy and not straight and stiff. If your lines don't look just like the examples, it's okay. Take note at the grid and the proportion and how the lines curve in and out. Now on page 39, it shows us the line of action and balance. You want to copy these with your simplified figure and repeat. Look, we can put off drawing shapes all we want, but we're not doing ourselves any favors. Take time to draw this example to understand contour lines. Then practice that on several other shapes. The leg and the arm examples are great, and I highly recommend drawing these out to study the perspective of the circles. These examples are great, and I recommend again sketching out the examples with our stick figure to understand placement and mapping out what we must foreshorten. It's a lot of grids and it's a lot of stick figures, but now we're going to move on to the bones and muscle. Look, there are over 200 bones and 600 muscles in the human body. Now don't beat yourself up trying to memorize every bone and muscle. It's great to know, but you are rarely going to show your work and have someone say, you know, that psoas iliacus looks off. We want to focus on what Loomis emphasizes, where the bones show on the surface of the skin. Take a moment and feel around any of the 15 bones to get the idea. Now let's draw our simplified stick figure and focus on what Loomis points out, the overlapping lines and what bones cause curves in our drawings. We'll redraw our human figure and begin observing and sculpting some muscle. Now onward to foreshortening blocks and planes. These examples are great, but if you just copy them, you're not going to learn anything. I recommend getting a figure of your own. I like using a StickyBones figure as they are superposable and durable, but you can use your own action figures too. You want to try posing them like Loomis did here and try to apply the same lighting. Study how Loomis identified the shadows and sketched them out. The planes are important, and the Silver Surfer-esque example here is a fantastic example, but as Loomis states, there are no set rule for planes. You draw them as best suit to the subject. He also states, no two artists will see planes alike, and that's true. I'm not going to see what you see, and you're not going to see what I see. Now, this is something that's really important. Practice what Loomis recommends and see how square you can make the round. Try tracing the example or print it out a few times and play with different lighting. You could use your mannequin as reference and use the lighting examples on page 78 and 79. We want to study the key points in this light example, as this will help give us volume and depth. Now, you basically have everything that you need to begin drawing the examples Loomis provides throughout the rest of the book. The next several chapters are brief and only take a few minutes to read, as they cover standing, turning and twisting, line of balance, rhythm and rendering, kneeling, crouching, sitting, and the reclining figure. I'll take time and observe his examples and observe how Loomis distributes the weight and balance in the movement of the figure. We'll take note on how he expresses himself through his drawings. These may not be the most exciting references to use, and if you're an action-packed comic book nerd like me, here's where you can have some real fun with it. Take a look at 106 and 108. These ladies could be dancing or in a stance to see how her figure looks in an outfit, or they can be Lady Deadpool or Mrs. Fantastic. After you've studied those examples, go through and use as many references as you can possibly find. This is the second concept that Loomis stresses throughout his book. Loomis recommends getting a camera of your own, and if Loomis was alive today, you know damn sure that he'd have an affiliate link in his description. However, I do not, but I have a link to a video where you can find free reference images. But before we check that out, let's get a brief look at how to draw the head, hands, and feet. Yes, I know, hands. Ugh. But as Loomis mentions, hands can be super expressive and give the simple standing figure so much life. Now you want to take note on how Loomis simplifies them, and as he mentions, try drawing every finger individually first to learn movement. This also helps us practice foreshortening. Now we'll draw several circles through the shapes and observe the perspective of the circles like we learned on the arm and leg. Now I'll cover more about how to draw hands in a future video. The brief walkthrough on how to draw the human head is a bit confusing, and there are plenty of videos out there on how to draw the human head like Andrew Loomis. I recommend taking the time to study this construction and the planes in these examples when you're following a tutorial. We get a look at the muscles of the face, and I recommend studying Freddy Krueger here to take note on where the light shows and casts shadows. The spacing of the face is crucial, and Loomis provides some examples of the facial features. And if you want guidance on how to draw all those individually, you'll have to look elsewhere. Okay, we're almost done, but we cannot leave out the final section, even though Loomis dedicates one page to it. But we want to make sure that you're not a guy who can't draw feet! The examples Loomis provides are great, but what you want to keep in mind when studying feet is the importance of foreshortening shapes. Try using the reference images that Loomis provides, but remember that yours might not look like his at first. Now the same goes for the final chapter of the human costume. This is a great practice to study. You want to draw the simplified figure first, then draw your costume and or apparel. We want to identify where the clothing will hang or bunch up. The small portfolio is great as it provides a sense of everything that we have learned in this book. Now the closing chat is important, as well as Loomis's final concept, practice. Now remember, we want to just take away bits and pieces of this book. You don't want to try and follow it to a T, because then that just gets boring. Take what you've learned from this book and apply it to your own. Have fun with it. Again, like I said, these figures can be relatively boring, but if you're imagining something else different, like a favorite character, it can be a lot more fun. Ugh. Oh, you're still with me, huh? So now here's the usual spiel. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. But before we get to that, I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. Look, I can't put the pencil in your hand and tell you to draw, but I can tell you this: if you don't draw, you won't make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you won't learn. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes just become solutions. Embrace yourself and put your artwork out there. I know it's scary, but if you take the time to read this book, you'll see at the end of the chapters 5 through 12, Loomis provides real-life situations about receiving work as an artist and submitting for approval. It's a little dated, but they are real-life scenarios. If you're aiming for illustration, cartooning, or comic book styles, focus on mastering the proportions and foreshortening from Loomis's teachings. This solid foundation will elevate your characters, no matter your artistic style. I sincerely thank you for your time, and let me know in the comments what you'd like to learn next, as it is my mission to make you the artist that you are meant to be. If you found this video helpful to complete figure drawing for all it's worth, then give this video a sign of your approval by hitting that like button and share it with fellow artists. And remember to subscribe for future tutorials. And if you didn't, please feel free to leave your opinion below. But for the love of Thor, please spell check yourself. For those that are still with me, the free imagery resources you're going to want to check out in this video are right here. Click it. Go, 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 go. Until next time, stay radical.